Hello, I'm Dr. Harper. This video is a homework Excel lecture video on operations management, BUSN 6630, section E01, summer 2021. And this is a homework Excel lecture for the aggregate planning, plans 4, 5, and 6. I did plans 1, 2, and 3 in a previous video. This is the extension of that to plans 4, 5, and 6. So let's bring up the assignment. On plan 4 here, if you recall, we back up here and we notice in the first video on plans 1, 2, and 3, I set up from the memo, I set the problem up, I did the level capacity, I did the chase demand, and I did the minimum cost. And so in this video, I start with plan 4 with Jack and Ida and Glenda in plan 4 with a minimum cost. Okay, and then we extend from what we did before. Jack, who has been quiet to this point and usually represents more practical issues that are of interest to corporate, proposes, let's limit our FTEs per month. Corporate has wanted to do this for some time, and this seems like a good time to at least consider an FTE limit. To accommodate any extra demand, we can allow overtime and pay our employees time and a half for any overtime they work. If our results seem feasible, corporate will support us in this and possibly other important issues originating from this committee. Ida, wishing to consider broader constraints, suggests the ending inventory of 0 certainly has the advantage of lowering cost, but it increases risk of stockout that we may not be willing to accept. I would like us to see us consider a minimum monthly ending inventory level for each month in the year to address the risk of stockout. Glenda, agreeing with Ida's insight of the risk of stockout and reinforcing Jack's appraisal of corporate, summarizes toward the end of the meeting. Setting a limit to FTEs has been considered in the past but was rejected by corporate due to their reluctance to require overtime, fearing higher costs and lower morale. However, I think we should consider Jack's proposal and maybe limit the amount of overtime in each month and push for a win-win proposal. Moreover, the risk of stockout has always been a problem that has been overlooked. This is a good time to consider Ida's proposal to lower inventory stockout risks that can be a strong argument to offset any increase in costs. Turning to Don, Glenda continues, these are very good suggestions and represent a variety of plans that we need to consider. Could we see a comparison of the aggregate plans in a handout for next meeting to lead our discussion? I think that would help us proceed in a more informed manner. Don completely agreed and adjourned the meeting. After the meeting, you and Don met in your office to clarify the requirements for the meeting so you could present your results in a manner as helpful as possible. You and Don agree on a set of plans. Now, before I go on, notice that your plan, your communication and tables were so clear, they went immediately to discussing extensions and further things we could do. And so when they do that, they're going to come back to you to do that again. You and Don agree on limiting the FTEs per month to a maximum of 45. And let me bold that there. And there's the 45 we need to put into our Excel to solve. Then selected a set of plans that would show important relationships between regular time, resulting in limited FTEs, overtime production, and risk of stockout. So let's do it. Let's bring in Excel. Okay, and in Excel here, remember the third plan here was a minimum cost plan. So now let's copy this over, and this plan 4 now, let's rename this. Plan 4 will be a max FTE, and that's going to be the fourth plan. Okay, so let's actually put this in here. This is plan 4. This will be minimum cost, max FTE. There we go. Okay, and actually let's put this here. Our max FTE will equal 45. And this is FTE per month. And so that, right there is our maximum. Okay, but also we're going to have overtime. So let's go ahead and add a row here. And now let's have overtime cost simply equals time and a half times our regular time equals time and a half times our cost. And then this is copy this down, and there they are. Let's go ahead and make this another row to separate this out. And there they are. I think we're good to go. But now we have to set it up. So let's come down here and set it up. Okay. So let's see what we have here. First of all, we have the hire and fire, the FTEs. We have everything already set up here, but now we have to modify it to have limit the FTEs to 45 and add in overtime. So let's see. Let's do the overtime right here. Let's. Is this going to interfere with anything? No. So let's just add a couple of columns. Okay. Now we're going to break out our production into regular time production and overtime production. Okay. And now this production is going to equal our regular time plus our overtime. Let's copy that down. All the way down. And there they are. They're all zeros. Let's go ahead and come back here and take these boxes out, and let's take away the shading, because now we're not going to change this. We're going to change these. These are going to be our decision variables that we change. Let's box these in and come up here and shade those. And so these right here, and also we're going to change these too. Let's go ahead and delete these. All these are going to be our decision variables. This is what we're changing. But now we tied our production to the regular time and overtime, and now we tie our FTEs here to our regular time divided by our production standard. This is going to be our FTEs, and this is going to be limited to 45. Okay, this will be limited, each of these is limited to 45. So that's a constraint. Okay, now we come across here, and so, but now these right here these are on, yep, these are fine, hire and fire, hire and fire. All those are pretty good. Okay, now we need to back up here and take these sums. Take the sum of the regular time production, okay, and then copy this over to here. And now the unit cost for regular time is going to be right here. Let's see, regular time per item is $7.20, and then per overtime is $10.80, time and a half. And so down here, this is going to equal this times this, and this is going to equal this times this. Now, since we broke up the production plan into regular time and overtime, we are not going to be using this anymore, because now we have 2 to replace that. Okay, and I think we're good to go here. We don't need all these zeros. Let's just reduce these down. Well, I should make them 2 maybe. Okay. Now this time our total cost here, let's justify this. This is going to equal inventory plus this, plus this, plus this, plus this. And now that's going to be our cost. That's what we want to minimize. Okay, now we have overtime. The regular time is tied to our FTEs. All these we're changing, our production and our capacity. And then they're tied to our left-hand side here. These are tied. You see, these are tied to our hire and fire and our FTEs. That's good. And these are tied, and everything's tied. So now let's go to solver. Now this becomes our objective function, and we do have it. We want to minimize. This time when I take these out, delete these, and all of these are going to be our decision variables. This is what we want to change. Okay, now let's make sure we have the right constraints here. K, 16K is 0, that through 27. Yep. M through 27 is greater than or equal to 0. M27 equals C6. Yep, C6 is going to be right here. can see here, C6 is going to be, C6 is the ending inventory. Okay, so that's good. But now we have to add our FTE requirements, our FTE limits here. So we add our FTE requirements here has to be less than or equal to 45. And there they are. Now we say OK. OK. And I think we have everything tied together. We say solve. And we have found a solution. All constraints, say OK. This right here, I'll probably have way too many significant figures here. We'll start reducing this down. When this happens, it's just too big for this for the cells. Bring this down here, and there they are. Oh yeah, we don't need all those zeros. There's our record time production. There's overtime production. There they are. Okay, and that looks pretty good. And so there's plan. This is plan 4. Oh, here it is again. Decrease. There we go. We don't need all those zeros. Okay, and there's our production plan, which is the sum of these two. Okay, and there they are. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, close enough. And there's the cost. There's our cost. Okay, and there's the production plan. Okay, let's go back to the problem. That's plan 4. Plan 5. Begin with the minimum cost analysis presented in the meeting and limit the number of FTEs per month, agreed upon minimum, 45. Allow monthly overtime production at a time and a half, but limit the monthly overtime production to 10% of the regular time production. So this is just one added extra constraint. Let's come back to here. We have our overtime production limited to 10% of regular time. Let's go ahead and put this in here. Let's see here. Where should we put this? Let's put this over here. There. Okay. 10% overtime max. Overtime max. And that's going to be 10% regular time. That equals 0.1 times whatever our regular time production is going to be, which is this. And we'll copy that down. This is going to be the maximum. Okay, and this is not. This is a constraint. Okay, so now when we go to solver, all we do now is add a constraint on this. Oh well. Let's cancel this. Let's close out. Let me delete this. Actually, let me copy this over. And this will be renamed. I didn't copy it over. This is going to be max FTE and then OT. This is plan 5. Okay, let's go back to plan 4. This is plan 4 and delete this. I want to keep them separate. Plan 5 is where we have our overtime. Now we go to solver and then we add, and we want our overtime here, this overtime, to be less than or equal to our overtime max. And there that is. Okay, pretty much that's all we need to do. Say go. Ah, it did change it. See, right there, it did change it a little bit. And so, and there's going to be our total, and there's our regular time, overtime, hire and fire, and inventory, and there's our cost. There's our cost right there. Okay, and there's our production plan over here. There's our production plan. Okay, so just add that one more, that extra max of 45 with a 10% overtime for the maximum, an added constraint. Okay, let's go on to plan number 6. Begin with the minimum cost analysis presented at the meeting and limit the number of FTEs, what we've done before. Allow the 10% allow monthly overtime production at time and a half, but limit the monthly overtime production 10% of regular time. So this is the same as plan number 5, but now plan number 6 simply says constrain the ending monthly inventory to be greater than or equal to 10. Oh, Ida, this is what Ida wanted, and I kind of agree. Okay, this up here is Jack, and now we got Ida. Okay, well, let's come back here, and this time let's copy this over and make sure that I do copy it this time. There we go, and let's rename this. This is going to be 6, and this is going to be overtime and ending inventory. See if it's going to make it all the way. And this is plan number 6. Okay, wait a minute. This is plan 4. This is plan 5. Let me just label these. This is plan 5. Max FTE and limit overtime production. Okay. Now this is plan number 6. And this is going to be max FTE, limit overtime production, limit ending inventory. Okay. Well, all we're doing on this one is go to solver, add another constraint. Over here, we're ending inventory here. All of these is greater than or equal to 10. Okay, solve, and there they are. You can see here when you do that, you're going to have, it's going to be a little bit different. Okay, and again, this is the sum of all these. Here's our 10% overtime. Here's our 10. And by the way, increasing it by 10 is lowering your risk of stock out. I could go back and put a 20. I can go back here. This is 10. I can go back here, go to the 10. Where did I put 10? Here's 10. Change this and put a 20 in here and solve it. Okay, and then solve it. And keep doing that. And this cost increase is how much you're increasing your inventory, but that is lowering your risk. So that could be a cost risk type table or graph for decisions to see how much they want to limit their risk. Okay, and so here's plan number 6. Okay, so let's go back to the problem. Again, then 19 and 20 says, after the meeting, Glenda and Don ask you to bring 2 items to the next meeting that are suitable for discussion that outline and summarize the results of the discussion. First, a one-page handout that outlines the important findings. Second, a PowerPoint presentation that succinctly addresses requests from the meeting that corresponds to outline in the handout. So what I'm doing here is that this has to be one page. They don't want to thumb through pages. In other words, the simpler, the better. It's almost like a map. It's like a landscape map saying, here's everything you need to know. Orchestrate it, organize it in a one-page handout. The PowerPoint is a little bit different. There's no audio. It's just a PowerPoint file saying, here's how the important things for them to go through and view. And a PowerPoint file like this, which is a presentation, no audio, each slide of your PowerPoint needs to be clear enough for them to understand exactly what you're trying to say. So if you have a table, if you have a graph, make sure that what they read is the answer. Don't just put a graph without any description. Make sure it's very clear what that graph is trying to show. And I would put the conclusion in the title of a graph or the conclusion in the title of a table. In other words, this is an increase, this is a decrease, this is the offset. So this is a PowerPoint of communicating without words. so they see exactly what you're trying to communicate in a PowerPoint. So these two are just an attempt, an exercise in communication and presentation. And by the way, this is an extremely important skill to have, because it's very, very valuable in communicating, and people can move forward and make decisions in business. That's all I have for this. So between now and the next time I see you, take care.